This episode, Game 101, we're going to be talking about another clip from the Whatever podcast. Now, you see on your screens here this whole body count thing. It's a very common thing. These red pill, green pill, purple pill faces with these grown ass dudes, crack little bitches, because they can't handle the fact that they're responsible for all their problems. It's literally a cuddle party for grown ass men on the internet instead of going out into the world and finding solutions for their issues. They hold hands and sing kumbaya together. And then they blame chicks for stuff that started with them in the first place. It was like, again, I don't want to bring up all the dudes that much, but like, look at John Majors. All that shit that happened with him, it's all his fault. This bro chasing him down the street on the street camera because he invited her in the door. He let her inside. That's the only reason it happened. Can't possibly be her fault. But like these dudes out here on these streets, they really be crying about how many dudes chick has been with. If you're not gonna be with her, why the hell do you care? So let's get into this. This guy Andrew is freaking funny. Let's get in. This should be freaking funny.
To have.
Yeah.
Okay, let's
Oh,
hear your
to have,
perspective.
Yeah.
I want to hear yours. I'm
Well,
curious.
I mean, it's not a deal breaker immediately, but I think once you get above 10, then it's an eyebrow raise.
What if you have 10 in the time span of you having from the age that you did have sex? Let me just make up a number 19 to let's say like I'm 26, 10, right? But let's say I'm 33-year-old virgin and then I end up discovering sex and I like have like 10 or 12 just because I finally let it go.
Mhm.
But it also comes with accountability, like Andrew was saying.
Yeah.
So like, is it that really such a deal breaker part, or is that too much just because of the
Okay, first, look at the way she's dressed. She ain't no virgin. Look at that shit all hang out. She's freaking homely and yeah. She ate. I know it's her. She was an example, but I'm like, yeah, whether it's 10, 20, she ain't never gonna tell you I'm gonna do what she meant with. I don't think it really matters. Yeah, that all these chicks in the panel are hoes. So they got that in common. As far as I'm concerned, I'm like, does it really matter?
time span of it, or is it just because of the experience of you being with 10 men?
So you say the question is essentially a woman who's had sex with one guy a year for X amount of years versus a woman who's had sex with 10 partners in the span of 1 year.
Is it the
Is that
time span, or is it
The
the
number.
people, or is it the number?
both?
I think we look at it. I think most women would look at it the same way. Though I think it would throw a greater red flag if they did them that kind of like back to back to back.
Yeah.
That would show even less kind of restraint. But I think that they would look at the overall count. So the way I look at it is this: this is an arbitrary metric. I'm not going to deny that it's an arbitrary metric. It's based on preference, right? There's nothing that I can point to where I can say this is the dyed-in-the-wool metric which every man follows or should follow. But I can say this as a almost definite across the board: the less, the better. And since it is always the case that it
Audio?
is the less, the better, at least in almost all men that I have talked to, then every single time that you have sex with a new man, this is going to lower your value in the eyes of most men. So I would.
So there's where I kind of disagree because I mean, this think of it for like when she's in college, right? She's away from home, parents ain't around, friends ain't around. She's partying, she's drinking. What do you think's gonna happen? Like chicks are crazy in college. One of the reasons why I didn't bother going. Like these broads are out of control, man. Even when I was at the chum bucket for like 4 years, go college goes to going there to work part time. You can already tell who's a party girl and who's not. Do I care who she's banged? No. No, she's been doing it. Doesn't matter to me. I don't care. I'm not gonna date her. Who gives a flying F? These guys talking about it's gonna lower your value. Value to who? Who's gonna marry any of these broads? Like, give me a break, man. That's why I just disagree with all these dudes. They complain about she's been with 10 dudes, she's been with 20 dudes. Like, and it's a problem. Because no one can ever give a good argument like why that's a problem. Because like dudes would be banging chicks too, but like no one talks about that. No one talks about a dude's body count. But it's always a problem when chicks are doing it for some reason. I guess because it's more common for dudes to like spread themselves with multiple broads, but I think because I guess in today's world, chicks think they can do whatever dudes can do. Like that she can open her leg as many times as a dude can without getting like knocked out, which is not possible. I mean, she can try, but she's more than likely she's gonna get got eventually, a lot more often than a dude. But like as far as like value from what? Unless these ain't either both looking for marriage, I doubt it. Look at the way they dress, especially this one right here.
But that's how I would frame it. I couldn't give you an exact number, but I don't think I need to. If you know that every single one above one makes you worth less, at least in the eyes of men, than if you had zero. Does that make sense? Make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. But would you also agree that there are other things that you could bring to the table that could raise your value? So it's kind of like this chart graph of like different things that come together to make a whole.
No.
So that
Well,
one's a
here's
big
the
deal
thing.
breaker for you.
I would say on the issuance of body count loyalty is what that's pointing to. So let me explain this the best way that I can. Paternity testing is a modern invention. It is something which is very recent. Before the idea of paternity testing came around, how would a man be able to judge if his offspring was his or if he had been cuckolded and his wife had slept with somebody else, had their offspring, and now this man is raising offspring unwittingly, which is not his own?
This part I agree with 100%. Paternity testing should be mandatory for every birth in the country. Because originally men did marry virgins at one point in time. I don't think that exists anymore, but that was how it was back at a certain time. In 2024, it ain't never gonna happen. Yeah, it's never gonna happen in 2024 and beyond. Just ain't. But like it's true. You could be with a chick who's had multiple partners, like honestly who cares? But you could be raising some other dude's kid and never know. Only one that would know is her. There have been cases I've seen on paternity court where a woman will lie to the man she's with, tell him that the kid he's raising and paying brat support for is his kid when it really ain't. So yeah, it's possible for that to happen. Like paternity is probably the main issue I think people have with body counts or whatever. But like as long as she ain't carrying nothing, I don't really see the problem. And for me, I mean, I'm never gonna ask a chick how many dudes she's been with. I don't care. I know she's a hoe, so that's like you only get that fact out of the way. pretty much work anything out. So
The only way to really determine that metric would be to have a woman who was a virgin. And the reason that you would want that is because then you know that this woman is devoted only to you. Whereas if she'd had multiple sexual partners,
so I don't agree with that. I don't think a chick will only be devoted to one dude because it takes her attention whores. They will always be seeking attention from other guys, whether she's married or not, whether she's dating you or been quote unquote long term. She's always going to want attention from other dudes. Always going to want to be desired. And if you're not quote unquote serious, or again, if she's in college, she's going to be macking with other dudes. So you can't control what happens. She's never going to be just yours. And that whole dudes kind of get over this whole virgin thing. You ain't never going to know if she's a virgin. You ain't never going to know unless you're a doctor and you've been down there. You're never going to know. So that type of stuff, dudes got to kind of get over that. Another common thing in the reptile space is like, she's not a virgin, she's a hoe. Yeah, she's probably a hoe either way. But we'll continue to see her what Mr. Andrew has to say.
before that, it's much more difficult to make the determination she would be with you. And now with paternity testing, we know how many women lie about paternity is actually a great many more than we ever thought. So I think that this is something which is hardwired into men for a good reason.
Too many?
It's for a good reason, and I would also say kind of negative too, because they can turn into an obsession with dudes. And
Makes sense. But
The better. And since it is always the case that it
Audio.
is the less the better, at least in almost all men that I have talked to, then every single time that you have sex with a new man, this is going to lower your value in the eyes of most men. So that's how I would. Does that make sense?
so I agree and I disagree at the same time. Paternity testing, yeah, should be mandatory, absolutely. It's like, again, in today's world, most broads are in the workforce. They're there 9 to 5. Sometimes they work longer than dudes. So she's talking at least more than one dude at the same time. Doesn't matter what she says publicly or whatever. She's talking to the dude. She got orbiters. They exist. They're always going to exist. Me and Matt the Porn Writers don't give a flying F anymore. Whether I'm dating a chick or not, I know there are orbiters everywhere. It's like, just give me a reason to drop kick in, because I'll do it. Done it before. And I actually kind of enjoy it, honestly, because I tell you, back in the days of high school, I was pretty much invisible to chicks. So now it's like shifting the balance of power back in my favor. It's kind of awesome to actually know that I am more valuable now, that I know my value in this crazy world. Because all these broads on the panel have manipulated a dude at some point. Now, look at this one in particular. Look at what she's wearing. And nobody wants to see that. But all these broads are manipulated a dude at one point or another. I don't know if any of them have kids, but sometimes chicks will lie, like he says. They will lie in order to keep something going. If he's paying her bills or she doesn't like his attention or whatever, she will lie to get what she wants. It's very common. Chicks do this all the time. They're really good at being chameleons. This is the type of stuff young men need to know when you're out there in the matrix, because as early as grade school, girls will try to manipulate you. As soon as they realize you're interested in them, as more than just a quote unquote friend, whatever that is. She will manipulate you, and you're off to the races. I know from experience. I've been the guy that chases the same chick for years and years, and gets you nowhere. You realize how much time you waste chasing the same broad. Because I gotta be honest, like, especially teenage broads, they ain't interested in teenage dudes. They're dating 30-year-olds. They're getting into nightclubs. They're getting their bills paid for them. Because, let's be honest, 30-year-olds are begging the crap out of them. And that's reality. But yeah, I think the interesting part of this is calling body counts disgusting is like, yeah, well, how many dudes have been sleeping around doing the same exact thing? Nobody talks about that. But it's always an issue if a girl is hooking up with a guy or something. And we're in the hookup culture, by the way, which is why I say that marriage is outdated. We're in the hookup culture. And nobody stay together like that no more. If they do, they're probably from the 80s or 70s, and freaking boomer ass generation. Those old ass people do that. Younger generations don't stay together like that no more. For what? Could have like 3 or 4 chicks chasing me at the same time. What need to be chained down for? For what? As far as like body counts, like, yeah, I don't really care. I don't think it's that important. And on both sides, males and females both be doing all that immoral shit. So I think both sides should be held accountable for this.
Yeah, it makes sense. But would you also agree that there are other things that you could bring to the table that could raise your values? So it's kind of like this chart graph of like different things that come together to make a whole.
No.
So that
Well,
one's a
here's
big
the
deal
thing.
breaker for you.
I would say on the issuance of body count loyalty is what that's pointing to. So let me explain this the best way that I can. Paternity testing is a modern invention. It is something which is very recent. Before the idea of paternity testing came around, how would a man be able to judge if his offspring was his or if he had been cuckolded and his wife had slept with somebody else, had their offspring, and now this man is raising offspring unwittingly, which is not his own? The only way to really determine that metric would be to have a woman who was a virgin. And the reason that you would want that is because
I agree with what he's saying, but virgins, they don't exist anymore. I mean, if you can get lucky, I guess, but there's no way to know if she is. I don't know why you would want to know. Again, unless you're a doctor and you've been down there with your heart had and not all that. I don't know why that's so important. He's not wrong about dudes originally marrying virgins at one point in time. Those days are no longer among us.
then you know that this woman is devoted only to you. Whereas if she'd had multiple sexual partners before that, it's much more difficult to make the determination she would be with you. And now with paternity testing, we know how many women lie about paternity. It's actually a great many more than we ever thought. So I think that this is something which is hardwired into men for a good reason.
And again, I'd say that that's both good and bad because this is all stuff that a lot of dudes out in these red pill streets be crying about all the time. I don't understand. I guess I just don't really care about that type of stuff. Got so many things in my mind besides any dude that you could spare a lace for. I know she's doing it, so I don't really care. It's like I'll use those from Power as an example. Like Angela Valdez, it's a freaking office hoe. She must have banged every other dude in that office. That was she was with that Greg dude. That was Ghost. While she was with Greg, she was going at it with Ghost for a long ass time. Broke up with Ghost. Got back with Greg. Then she ended up nailing some other guy at the office too. And Ghost knew the whole time what she was doing. Didn't care. He got back with her anyway. And she was a freaking office help. I mean, she would have probably spread her legs for sex if he asked. But Ghost was never going to marry her, which is the point I'm trying to make. Unless you're going to marry her, who cares? Just be aware she's doing it. She's definitely hooking up with guys, whether you're there or not. Just in these days, and chicks in the workforce, there ain't no way she's not hooking up with somebody. There's no way. Whether you're with her or not, she's doing it. Just know that she's somebody over there getting that ass.
Yeah, but just also because a woman's a virgin in a relationship doesn't mean she's not going to cheat on you and go run around and
I think
Do
that
all
the
that
likelihood
stuff.
I think that the likelihood, though, that a woman who is a virgin in a relationship with you does run around is going to be far less than the likelihood of a woman who's promiscuous doing so. Wouldn't you agree?
Nah, doesn't matter. She's gonna do what she wants to do. Because let me tell you, if a chick is a quote unquote virgin, she got chick friends that aren't virgins, they're gonna convince her one way or another to get with somebody. Whether it's at a party or just goofing around or whatever. She's gonna be persuaded by somebody, whether it's a chick friend or society as a whole. Maybe you'll get lucky, like with some young chick, 18, 19-year-old, hasn't been with any dudes. But the chances of her actually being a V are like slim to none. And you'll never know for sure. So I don't get why it matters so much to these people.
Well, what if you've just like awakened this virgin? What if Lauren here is some like hidden like freak and she like gets
Whoa.
awakened and now she's
Wait,
just like
hold on.
running around
Re-
town?
Hold on.
Actually, that's actually
So really
real
quick.
Brian.
So
Okay.
really quick on the whole cheating thing.
Mhm.
Really quick on the whole cheating thing. Me personally, while it can be an indicator for potential infidelity, at least for me, that's not really the primary reason. Frankly, I just think it's gross.
Yeah.
I can't even articulate precisely why. I couldn't even why I actually could.
But that's why you think it's gross.
It's just disgusting.
I can
That's
I
why
can
you think
respect
it's
that a little bit
disgusting.
more. I agree with that opinion more because that like I can understand that
Yeah,
one more
but
because I
that's
think
why
it's
it's disgusting. Don't you understand? Like the reason that men find it disgusting is because of that hardwired, innate understanding of if you're sleeping with multiple men, I cannot determine offspring. That's why it's disgusting to men. That's why they find it gross. It's like it's not enough to just say it's gross, right? The justification for it is very simple. And so when we dive into this, like I'd like to engage directly with your argument, right? And your argument is, what if you awaken the beast? Now you've slept with this virgin woman,
Mhm.
and what would you be, if you awaken that beast, is she, well, I suppose it's possible.
yeah,
but
the milkman's
here's what,
coming by and
but here's what the data shows us. Here's what we know from the data. Because women who marry as virgins have only the sample size of their husband, right? That's the sample that they have. They think that's the best in the world. What the fuck would
Yeah.
they have to compare it to?
yeah, I actually
I mean, like, so many things wrong with what they're saying. But, yeah, he's basically talking about like paternity. Like some of me, I don't want kids. I never wanted them. I don't, never will. So that's why it doesn't really matter to me as much. And you're never going to know. I guess unless you got X-ray vision or something, we're never gonna know. Doesn't matter at the end of the day. It can matter. That's what you're looking for, I guess. But I don't know. Just probably not gonna find a birthday. Yeah, I don't know why you would want. I might have dated one at one point. Let me tell you, they're the most cleanest creatures in the world, man. They're so clean. Any boy can be clean, but like if you determine that you do have a V, yeah, good luck getting rid of her.
We have friends that multiple
Nothing.
couple
They have
friends
nothing to
that have
compare it to. So
been
so
together
that's why
since
the
high school.
longevity and the faithfulness in those relationships tends to be much higher than it is in the general public.
Yeah,
The likelihood of
I
it
have
happening
some
is
very
so much
happily
higher.
married couple friends that have been together since high school that have never been with anybody else. So I totally see that. I've also seen on the other side of the spectrum, really unhappy, like people that wanted to resented that they wish they had more experience. And I've also
Yeah,
seen
sure,
people
sure.
with a lot of
Listen.
experience.
I
who
can't
have-
argue with your anecdotes.
Yeah.
I can't argue with anecdotal experience. So I'm going to defer to what we see
Right.
from polls and data from people who are studied who enter into virgin relationships, their divorce rate, their marriage rate, their happiness rates, and their infidelity rates. I'll defer to when we have a much larger sample size than what I personally have seen, but rather them being followed so that we understand what the outcomes of those types of relationships are. And here's what we see, just so yet you know, what we see specifically is that men and women who get married as virgins, their relationships last far longer. Their divorce rates are far less, far less. And if a man marries a virgin who's not a virgin, same thing, almost the same identical outcome.
Mhm.
However, if the woman is promiscuous and the man is promiscuous, the outcome's usually bad when it comes to divorce. Same thing if only one partner is promiscuous. So
I mean, marriage can end any time. So I'm not entirely sure I agree with that. Let's talk about data and shit. And I'm like, I'd rather just go by what the people actually do together. Like numbers and all that, numbers and shapes. I don't think that really matters at the end of the day. I want to hear this again.
longer, their divorce rates are far less, far less. And if a man marries a virgin who's not a virgin, same thing, almost the same identical.
Yeah, again, you're never gonna know who she is or isn't. You're never gonna know. Like these people focus on the wrong things. You're not dating her. You ain't gonna marry her, bro. Who cares, man? Who cares? It's not like she's gonna write down how many dudes she's had. Especially if she's over 18. She's been being gawked at since she started in adolescence. And honestly, girls probably hook up even younger now than they ever have in the past. That's just my assumption, but I was like, I had to look at some of these broads myself at the chum bucket or when I'm in society and going to town. I'm like, sometimes you can really assume or you can like guess that yeah, that person's definitely been around the block a couple times. But you're never gonna really know. Is that one of the things I really try to focus on too much? But again, on both sides of the spectrum, dudes be just as immoral as chicks. So I think both sides are at fault for this body count nonsense. I do agree that it's gross, but again, you're just looking at it from like talking about chicks. Like dudes be doing just as bad as broads. They were doing maybe worse because dudes don't have to carry no kids in their bodies. So dudes can get away with a lot more. Dudes don't have to carry no offspring around for 10 months or wherever it is. So I think we just need to be fair in this type of stuff because, and again, this also comes back around to the dudes because who are these chicks banging? They're banging dudes. So
outcome.
Mhm.
However, if the woman is promiscuous and the man is promiscuous, the outcome's usually bad when it comes to divorce. Same thing if only one partner is promiscuous. So what we can ascertain from this is that if you're both virgins and you get married, it's no guarantee that you won't awaken the beast in the woman, but it's a great mitigating factor, isn't it? It's a great way to mitigate it.
As an example. Yeah.
all this stuff he's talking about sounds like theory in a lot of ways, at least in my opinion. Like, oh, they're both virgins, they'll have a better relationship. I'm like, no, that's between the two people that have a good relationship, whether they've been around the block or not. It's just, it comes down to the people. It's not about numbers and data and body counts. Like, this is what these passport guys probably cry about. Modern broads got high body counts. I'm going to go across the sea where they're just as promiscuous as they're over here in the Americas. And basically ending with the same exact problem that they have over here. Only they're paying money to go get it somewhere else. Only thing is, when you go over there, they know that you ain't from there. So you just pray. The same with these red pill idiots. They put all the blame on the broad when they're the one that opened the door for everything to happen. The rise and fall of society depends on men. Depends on men. So if she's got a high body count, it means she's been getting with dudes. Unless she plays for the other team, which I don't know how that really works. But yeah, it's an interesting topic, and I always found this interesting how people will talk about this type of thing, but they don't want to be like fair about it. Like, yeah, it is kind of gross, but dudes will be just as immoral as chicks. So it's definitely on both sides of the spectrum. I just thought I'd briefly touch on that because it's definitely something that I found to be kind of interesting. Not a little strange, but like again, I know society is like really nosy. I see that stuff every day. Like I'm a private guy, so I don't put my personal affairs out on the streets. I don't even tell family about my affairs because no one's concerned. No one's concerned with mine. Somebody needs to know something, they'll know it. But other than that, I don't tell them. I don't tell them shit. It's not their business. It might sound harsh, like, oh, don't you want to share your spirit with your family? I'm like, no, you don't. I don't believe in marriage or any of that nonsense. I don't. It's just, I know I was raised to believe in all that, but if you get into the real world, you see things so much differently. Doesn't mean I don't believe in Christ. No, I do. But marriage to me is outdated. And this body count argument is just so silly. The manager makes some interesting points, but at the same time, he's talking more about data and stuff instead of like outside of fraternity, which I understand should be an issue for a lot of dudes. I've seen a lot of those at the paternity court where dudes think they the dad and they ain't. It's some sad stuff because every time the broad knew the whole time. Like the only one she knows who she was banging. So yeah, I get the whole. She's been with this many dudes. Like, yeah, well, you can't stop it from happening. So why are you crying? She's gonna be with you. She's gonna be with you. But you only mention that at the end of the day. I'm not gonna marry her. Why cry about it?